Let's bring in former White House OMB Director Russ Vought. Well, Russ, it isn't for want of McCarthy's desires. It's just that he's getting stonewalled by the president. You know, it looks like President Biden doesn't want to give an inch on a budget that has grown by like $5 trillion since he's been president. Is there nowhere in that extra $5 trillion that the president would concede anything for cutting?
Well, he doesn't want to, and they right now have taken an ahistorical approach, which is that they don't need to negotiate at all. But I think they probably realize that that changes once the House passes a bill and has an approach. And as a result of the likelihood of this week, when that happens, of them passing a $4.5 trillion in cuts out of the House, I think that's when a lot of pressure is going to come down on the White House. And you already saw it over the weekend with Democrats coming out and saying they need to negotiate. And that's only going to ramp up. And if Republicans had taken a step, all right, we're not going to put forward our package until the very end, I think you would have had a lot of concern coming from the Wall Street markets. That has a chance to go in the opposite direction towards Joe Biden. I think he's going to have to negotiate.
Well, and, you know, the other concern, we just heard a previous guest say that, tax receipts are probably going to be down. I mean, if tax receipts are down, the debt grows even larger. I mean, it's not just all of the money that's spending, it's the potential slowdown of the private sector.
There are certainly a lot of variables, and I think we got to make sure everyone knows that Joe Biden has the unilateral ability to prevent a default, because there will be enough revenues that come in to be able to pay principal and interest on our treasuries. What they want to define as default is the timely payment of every last woke grant at the Department of Education. And, of course, that's not what the full faith and credit of the United States means. And so that's the debate that we're going to have over months. But you're right. The X date is fluid, but it is probably going to get us into July or so. But it's vital to get this debate started with clarity of the American people. This is what House Republicans are for. $4.5 trillion in cuts to the bureaucracy and the things that they hate most, the IRS agency expansion, the student loan bailouts, putting a work requirement in law so that we can get people off of the sidelines and into the workforce.
Well, and you mentioned the Department of Education. A lot of people would say that the more money we spend on the Department of Education, the lower the test scores go. So you wonder about the feasibility, about whether we're getting our money's worth out of a lot of the government. And then there's the overall question, Russ, about the overweight size of government in comparison to the private sector. I mean, we haven't had a government this big in our GDP since World War II. What effect does that have on the economy?
An enormous effect. And it's not just big, it's woke and it's weaponized. So it's not only just kind of crowding you out in the private marketplace, it's actually aimed at you. It's aimed at your business. It's aimed at your community and your school. And so when Republicans are saying we're going to defund that bureaucracy, they're going a long way to making sure that freedom is no longer in default in this country and that people can go about their business and be able to live their lives in a way that their parents raised them to be able to do. That's the debate that we want to have with the country over the next several weeks and months.
There's also another debate, Russ, and that's the issue of all the unmotivated workers we have, some of whom remain on the sidelines because of the immense expansion of our welfare programs for healthy workers, we should emphasize. The president in the past has worried about this back when we exchanged workfare for welfare. And back in '96, this is what he said about it. The culture of welfare must be replaced with a culture of work. The culture of dependence must be replaced with a culture of self-sufficiency and personal responsibility. Boy, that sounds right on point, and it sounds like a lot of what Republicans are saying right now that has to be somehow pushed into the budget, however it turns out.
Isn't it amazing what was common sense 2 decades ago is now viewed as completely extreme? We get called crazy. They're the ones that are crazy. And unfortunately, COVID taught much of the country that the benefits existed is really amounts to a hammock. And so a work requirement could not come at a better time in the aftermath of COVID to be able to teach folks the benefits of work, to get them off of these programs, and not to just do it in welfare, which is what Clinton did with the Republicans in Congress, but to expand it to Medicaid, to expand it to food stamps. That's the benefit of what the House Republican package is putting forward this week.
We should also mention, by the way, when we moved to workfare, there were a lot of Democrats that were opposed to President Clinton back then signing that bill. They turned out to be wrong, because what happened is the welfare rolls came way down, but so did the poverty level. That is, people got back to work. The poverty level among children had never been lower 5 years after we went to workfare. So it actually has a beneficial effect not only on the economy, but on reducing the level of poverty in this country. And that can't be denied. That's just a fact. Russ, we got to leave it at that. Please come back and see us. Always a pleasure to talk to you.